This video is going to be no fluff, no intro, just 5 myths that are hurting your win rate. Let's go. The first myth, and possibly one of the worst out there, is the idea that if you lose the first fight, the only way to win is by swapping to a new hero. This myth likely comes from the pressure players feel to do something after losing a fight, and the fastest, most visible action to take is just to switch heroes. On top of that, this myth is parroted to no end by players on your own team who are immediately looking for a scapegoat to try and tell them to switch. Moira sucks, go Ana. You're feeding on Hog, go Rein. I know we've all heard things like this before. There are a couple problems with swapping all the time, but the main one is that you never learn how to play an unfavorable matchup. If you want to climb, you should be focusing on 1 to 2 heroes and learning all their ins and outs. And yeah, this includes playing into their counters. Did you die because Cassidy counters Echo, or were you just flying out in the open with no cover? Learning from your mistakes and becoming highly proficient at a few characters will directly lead to winning more matches in the long run. On top of that, swapping can ruin your ult economy, leading to the enemy team getting their ults before yours and getting a free fight win because you're too busy trying to counter them instead of just playing a character you're already good with. Now, I'm not saying you should never switch. If you pick Rein and the enemy team rolls out on Orisa, Bastion, Tracer, Mercy, and Baptiste, switching is probably going to help. But try to keep your hero pool as small as possible instead of flexing to every hero in your role. If Rein isn't working, have one backup hero that you can play instead so that you're still focusing your playtime as much as possible. Focus on why you died or lost the fight and how to adapt on your main instead of relying on counter swapping, which will hinder your ability to climb in the long term. The second myth is that every ult needs to be a team wipe. I reviewed hundreds of VODs in the bronze to plat range, and it's hard to really communicate how many flank high noons or tac visors I've actually seen in my reviews. Even when the person dies doing it, they'll try it again and again and again in the same game. And to some extent, I can actually understand where this idea comes from. Our brains have a hardwired pleasure loop where when we do something we regard as good, our brain releases happy chemicals to reinforce that behavior. When I started playing Overwatch in 2017, I remember hitting my first 4-man grav, and I've been chasing that high ever since. Getting 1 or 2 heroes in the grav just isn't as rewarding. The good news is, we can think rationally and overcome this biological feedback loop. You want to win games, right? That's why you clicked on this video? Well, here's the truth. Getting 1 or 2 kills consistently with your ult will lead to more wins than getting 1 5-man ult every 10 attempts. This is extremely evident if you watch high-level gameplay. You'll see them solo ult people literally all of the time. Especially with riskier ults like Barrage, Death Blossom, or Riptire, it's more important to get some value and live than it is to just go for more and die. You may think this way of playing is less fun, and I can't really stop you from thinking that, but what's fun for me is winning games, and I'm not going to let some monkey-brained evolutionary garbage get in the way of that. There are a few exceptions, but remember that you have to learn the rule before you can learn the exceptions. If you're on a lower rank, you can get away with more plays that shouldn't work and won't work in higher ranks. But that's fine as long as you don't keep trying it in a higher rank. For example, a flank high noon in bronze probably picks up 3 kills on average, whereas in GM, it's a one-way ticket to having every cooldown in the entire game thrown at you at once as you explode into a million pieces like a watermelon that was hit with a nuclear bomb. You'll have to play around and see where that cutoff line for you really is. The more skilled you are, the more rules you can break. Just realize it's almost never a bad idea to get your 1 or 2 with your ult and continue providing value with the rest of your kit. Putting your entire paycheck into a slot machine is fun when you hit, but if you want to make a living, you just learn to show up, do your work, and collect your steady wins. Moving on to our third myth, and it actually hurts me that so many people still believe this, is the idea that support should always focus on pocketing their tank. This has been around since the very beginning of the game, and somehow got even worse with the release of Overwatch 2. Since there's only one tank now, players have wrapped their heads around the idea that they can't even look at their DPS until their tank is full health, and they're losing easy games because of it. And look, I get it. It's comfortable to shoot at a big hitbox, get your big healing numbers, and claim that you weren't the reason that you lost. But if you had taken 1 second instead to heal your dueling soldier, he would have won his 1v1 instead of dying. If you had put your Harmony Orb on Tracer for even 1 second, she would have been able to build Pulse Bomb before Suzu came off cooldown. If you had just turned your camera up instead of staring at Roadhog's backside, you would have realized your Pharah needed help. And these are the type of things that win games. It's easy to heal a tank. Anyone can do it. You should instead recognize when your tank isn't in danger of dying, even if they aren't full health, and then check up on the rest of your teammates to see if you can make a greater impact elsewhere. And to be clear, I'm not telling you to ignore your tank. Sometimes your tank really does need all of the support to even survive, and in that situation, you better do everything you can to keep them alive. But if they're half HP and behind cover while your DPS are actively engaged in a fight, think twice about where you are actually needed and where you can make a difference in your games. Ask yourself all the time, who's actively fighting? Who's in danger right now? Where can I change the outcome with my support? Eventually, these thoughts become automatic, and you'll start winning games that you didn't even realize you could have won before. Our next myth is that the tank should always be the one moving the payload. I think this stems from the idea that tanks are the front line, and that they need to be the ones focusing on the objective because of that. However, if you break down that logic, you'll realize that it literally doesn't make any sense. Tanks are the front line, and that's the key word. They need to be on the front line, which is actually ahead of the payload. This allows them to make space for everyone behind them so that the cart has room to push. I know some people may not like to hear this, but the heroes best suited to push the payload are either A, very mobile and can get to a fight quickly like Tracer, or B, long range and can contribute from a distance like Ana. Once you think about it for more than 4 seconds, it actually makes a lot of sense. If you put an Orisa on the cart while the rest of the team pushes forward, what do you actually expect her to do? She's gonna sit there and do nothing while everyone else goes up and usually dies because no one's there to take damage and mitigate cooldowns. Now, this rule of fast characters or ranged characters works perfectly in a controlled environment where you trust and communicate with your team, but we all know ranked is the exact opposite of that. If you are the fast or long range character, take it upon yourself to move the cart after a one fight. However, if you're playing someone who's less than ideal, but no one else will move it anyways, you need to be the one to do it. If you push up because your character shouldn't be pushing the payload, but your team loses because no one pushes it, the rank system doesn't care about your reasoning. You still lost rank. Just do what you can to make sure that the tank isn't the one on the payload. And finally, moving on to the last myth, which is also my personal favorite to argue against, is that you can't climb in solo queue. And before I even get into this, I'm going to argue that the best way to improve is by playing solo queue, and real improvement is what drives elo gain, and I'll prove it to you. There's an epidemic of sorts going on in the Overwatch community, and it's been a thing for as long as Overwatch has existed, and frankly, as long as team games have existed. I call it the ego escape plan, but it's better known as just blaming your teammates for your own deficiencies. I'm going to get dislikes for this take, but those of you who actually want to improve need to listen up right now because this is the most important thing I'll say all video. Your teammates are not holding you back, and the best way to gain rank is to focus on your own gameplay. Basically, you could always play better, so there's no reason to waste your energy critiquing your teammates, who, mind you, are in the same rank as you for a reason. Playing solo queue is the fastest way to expose your own deficiencies since you can't rely on communication skills or synergy with a teammate to make up for your lack of proficiency at something. If you play support and suck at dueling flankers, you have no one to automatically peel for you. If you play tank and don't know how to use corners, you have no support to automatically bail you out with all of their cooldowns. If you play DPS and you can't win your 1v1s, you have no mercy to automatically give you a pocket. The key is that you need to analyze your own gameplay to figure out what you could do better, and solo queue is the best place to do that. Watch your games back, figure out why you died or why your team lost the fight, and ask yourself, what could I have done differently to alter the outcome? Then, take that alteration and actually apply it next time you're in that situation. Use the corner better, or don't take that 1v1 with no cooldowns, or save your nade for that annoying flanker. Solo queue is irreplaceable, and everyone at the top of the ladder has countless hours of solo queue refining their gameplay until they reach the level they're at now. Will you get bad teammates sometimes? Yes, of course. Will some games be out of reach even if your name's Jay Jonak, Kevster, or Super? Absolutely. Does this mean that you can't climb because of your teammates? Not in the slightest. You are the only constant in your lobbies, and if you're better than the average player and play enough games, you're going to climb. If you enjoyed this video, a like would mean the world to me. I plan to be posting a little more regularly, so stay tuned if you're serious about ranking up. I hope you enjoyed, but more importantly, I hope you learned something today. See you next time.